Ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats are absolutely failing after CNN let Jake Tapper, live on air, mind you, get away with murder. The producers should have cut the feed and yanked his mic. They should all lose their jobs and be afraid after what just happened, but it's just the latest slice of delicious pie being served up for our enjoyment while the left eats cake. Figuratively speaking, of course. That was actually a line, quote from the villain in the movie, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, that I took my family and some friends who came into town, came down and visited us from Nashville to see last week. And ironically, that movie, albeit magic and sleight of hand, was the primary draw for most moviegoers, and the underlying message was all too real and is pretty much a dead match and is spot on for what I'm about to reveal to you guys for all of you to see in today's show. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help a lot. But let's start with this clip from CNN before diving deeper into this rabbit hole of illusion featuring quite possibly the most embarrassing ending of a fight that Whoopi Goldberg started with Stephen A. Smith right before he shuts down the host on The View after exposing a mind-blowing multi-billion-dollar fraud scam the Democrats have been a part of for years. Fraud doesn't even really seem like a strong enough word to use to describe what Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar just did.
The Trump administration reacting to the fraud in Minnesota with a strong warning.
Our message to Walz is clear. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change, because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence. This administration will never stop fighting to protect the vulnerable Americans who rely on these programs and the taxpayers who fund them. We're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse.
It's like one of the most valued programs in the government. They allow this to happen and then for political reasons want to act like it didn't happen.
Sure. And as we're talking about healthcare subsidies and, the importance of lowering costs for Americans, you think about Medicaid money being a big part of that, going to Americans instead going to illegal immigrants. But it's funny. Here's some words that you might never thought you'd hear in the New York Times ever, but I found them deep buried in an article. The episode has raised broader questions for residents about the sustainability of Minnesota's Scandinavian modeled system. Whoa, New York Times, you're finally waking up. If you're something in the drinking water, conservative New York Times, hey.
And I would like to thank you for reading the New York Times so I don't have to.
You're welcome.
This is kind of, I think, the key difference, or supposed to be, ideologically, between Democrats and Republicans, that actually maybe all of this money going to these welfare programs, at the very least, need to be monitored.
Sure.
But if not that, there are dangers that come with it.
Absolutely.
But stick with me, folks. Stay locked in because you are not going to want to miss this. FBI Director Kash Patel alongside Deputy Director Dan Bongino delivers a knockout that leaves the fake news scrambling. Jake Tapper spirals live on air while J6 bombshell explodes as the Dems go down in flames. That's right. CNN's golden boy, Jake Tapper. Oh boy, where do I even begin? Where to even start with this guy? Born back in 1969 in New York City to a Jewish family, his dad's a pediatrician, his mom's a psychologist. He then grew up in Philadelphia, dabbled in the theater as a kid, which is fitting for a career built on smoke and mirrors, and even interned at the one and only HBO before stumbling into journalism. He cut his teeth writing for glossy mags like GQ and the Washington City paper, then landed at ABC News in 2003 as a correspondent. Fast forward to 2013 and boom, he's CNN's chief Washington anchor, hosting the lead and State of the Union, raking in Emmys like they're candy and co-authoring bestsellers that conveniently rewrite history to make him look like the hero. But here's the rub, folks. Tapper's resume reads like a highlight reel of establishment stardom. Yet to millions of us, especially those who value truth over talking points, he's the poster child for everything wrong with the corporate media swamp. Why? Let me count the ways. First off, his relentless, laser-focused vendetta against President Trump, whom he's skewered for years with the kind of sanctimonious snark that makes you reach for the mute button every single time. Remember 2020, when Trump called out Biden's laptop story as fake news? Tapper and his CNN cronies dismissed it as Russian disinformation faster than you can say laptop from hell. They buried it, mocked it, and even suspended the New York Post for reporting on it, only for it to be proven 100% legit months later. Another dollar in the Donald Trump was right jar. Or how about his endless drumbeat on the Russia collusion hoax? And Tapper amplified every anonymous source leak like it was gospel, fueling the witch hunt that wasted millions in taxpayer dollars and nearly toppled a duly elected president. When the Durham report exposed it all as a sham, crickets from Jake. He just pivoted like a pro. And don't even get me started on his selective amnesia when it comes to the Biden White House. For 4 long years, Tapper played defense for Sleepy Joe, downplaying gaffes, shuffling feet, and sharding himself, and those vacant stares as just Joe being Joe. He co-moderated that disastrous 2024 debate where Biden looked like he had just wandered off the set of Weekend at Bernie's, yet afterwards, Tapper spun it as a tough night while hammering Trump for every interruption. Fast forward to his 2025 tell-all book, Original Sin, where suddenly he's the brave whistleblower exposing the cover-up of Biden's cognitive decline. Yeah, right. Please, give me a break. Critics from both sides called it out as a cynical cash grab. And after all, if he knew about Joe's decline, why not report it live instead of waiting to write about it for his book tour? Yeah, nice grift, Jake. It's classic Tapper. Hindsight heroism for the bestseller list. And now you see why President Trump and more than half of America absolutely despise this guy. It's simple. Tapper's not a journalist. He's a partisan operative in a suit. Trump, who's faced more media hit jobs than any leader in history, has roasted him relentlessly, dubbing him everything from a low-rated anchor to the king of fake news. And that's right next to Caitlin Collins. CNN really knows how to pick him, right? During the 2024 campaign buildup, Trump and his team hammered Tapper's anti-Trump bias ahead of that CNN debate, with Eric Trump blasting him for years of hostile coverage. CNN even went as far as abruptly ending a news segment, cutting the mic on Caroline Levitt. You guys remember that, right? Yet Tapper fired back, of course, calling Trump's military order defense wildly inappropriate and likening them to the Nuremberg trials. But it's all theater, folks. Deep down, it's personal. Tapper's built his brand on speaking truth to power, but when the power was Trump, it was wall-to-wall smears. No truth. From accusing Trump of wanton disregard for human life during COVID to refusing to condemn platforms hosting neo-Nazis, while Trump did repeatedly, mind you, just goes to show Jake's hypocrisy shines brighter than his CNN desk lamp or the sign on the side of the building for CNN. I mean, they don't call him Fake Tapper for no reason. This walking clown show has earned that nickname straight from President Trump himself, echoing his epic takedowns of fake news CNN. It started gaining steam around 2017 when Sean Hannity branded him Fake Jake for peddling the Steele dossier nonsense, and Breitbart piled on with Fake Tapper for his endless Trump-bashing marathons. By last year, during the 2024 election, it was everywhere. MAGA, Trump family, and supporters like Eric and Laura Trump, whom Jake once abruptly cut off mid-interview for daring to question Biden's sharpness, then apologized months later when it suited his narrative, weaponized it to expose his double standards. It's not a slur, it's earned. Somewhat like calling him a retard. I can think of another retard.
Okay, so I think this is safe to say, and this is according to Glenn Beck, and I'm in agreement here that Tim Walz is probably not medically retarded, but he is definitely politically retarded. I think that's fair to say at this point. Any governor who allows this community to run this type of fraud on autism, Medicaid, and food for children, yeah, that's a different level of retardedness, if that makes sense. Now,
we'll come back to that. But this, folks, is the guy who just went live on air describing the freshly arrested J6 pipe bomb suspect, a black man named Brian Cole Jr., as a 30-year-old white man. Yes, folks, you heard that right. And I couldn't believe it myself either. But minutes later, his own show airs the guy's photo and boom, watch. The viral embarrassment hit him like a ton of bricks. Proof Dems instinctually programmed to lie, because to fake Tapper, facts are optional if they don't fit the MAGA extremist script narrative that he's been peddling for years. So, as we roll this clip, keep that in mind. Jake Tapper isn't just misrepresenting a suspect. He's the living embodiment of a media machine that's lost the plot.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
CNN's Jake Tapper labels the J6 pipe bomber suspect Brian Cole a 30-year-old white man. You can't make this stuff up. And just like I heard Decoy Voice say today, we don't hate the legacy mainstream media enough. Because to them, and folks like Jake Tapper, who is supposed to be trusted to report the facts and real news, to them, MS-13 wife-beating gang members are Maryland men. Burning down police stations in Minnesota riots is mostly peaceful protests. Narco-terrorists and their go-fast boats loaded to the gills and damn near tipping the scales to the point of which they'd capsize are your regular run-of-the-mill Bass Pro Shop fishing boats, and apparently the former co-president to the auto pen was, in fact, sharp as a tack. Come on. Give me a break.
The media is truly the enemy of the people, somehow making their few remaining viewers even stupider. And at the same exact time, other outlets seem to know exactly what he looks like. No matter how much you hate the mainstream media, you don't hate them enough, as one slip-up might be a mistake, but they race swap so many suspects, you'd think it's a Netflix adaptation. As remember that shooter in Manhattan, the initial...
Yeah, what he said. The media, whom we all don't hate enough, silence on certain stories and topics, yet wildly loud and vocal on others, except usually they are dead wrong and just in the business of pushing misleading propaganda and misinformation. And we've been down this road before, folks, but it's worth another look. And to include this in our conversation tonight, because this is the same media whom were all up in arms after President Trump called the illegal, undocumented Somalian fraud ringleaders like Ilhan Omar, the welfare fraud queen, garbage. And rightfully so. But there hasn't been any word on Biden calling half the country garbage last year during the campaign after the massive Trump rally in NYC at Madison Square Garden.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
Oh, it must be different. It must be different since he's a fellow Democrat, right? The Hodge twins said, "That's the blackest white man we've ever seen." Tommy Loren. And Well, tonight we learn that Jake Tapper is not only dumb, he's also blind. Libs of TikTok is in a total shock and disbelief and says Jake Tapper refers to alleged pipe bomber as a white man. What? Jake, are you sure about that? Are you sure? And so, what we can gather from all of this is that Jake Tapper, clearly, he must, and Jake Tapper officially identifies as an idiot. Corrine Clark Barron left this one reply in the comments that says, normally, liberal anchors just avoid mentioning race when the suspect isn't white. Someone clearly fed Jake bad info, and now he looks like a big dum-dum head on live TV. And this one here says, Jake Tapper's slip-up calling the J6 pipe bomb suspect a white man reeks of the same old media playbook. Assume the worst actor fits their narrative before facts hit the screen. Cole's arrest after 4 years shows the bombs targeted both parties. No easy villain. But rushing to paint him white? That's not journalism. It's activism dressed as news, eroding truth and trust faster than any riot. When will outlets own their biases instead of hiding behind corrections? But that's just it, folks. Why plant bombs at both parties' HQs? Why? Both headquarters? Well, this is the optics game that they tried to use to fool everyone. And yeah, sure, Jake Tapper's on-air flub calling the January 6th pipe bomber a 30-year-old white man seconds before his own network aired photos of Brian Cole Jr., a black man, wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was the media's muscle memory kicking in. Assume the villain is a MAGA white guy because that's the only narrative that sells. And it is leaning on their typical go-to of race baiting, racist, and racism that we all know of too well. More on that later. But that comment on X really got me thinking, though. This really looks more like it's activism dressed as journalism, but now, thankfully, nothing exposes the playbook faster than this arrest. And so here's the part that still stings 4 years later. The bomber deliberately hit both the RNC and the DNC on the same night, right? 2 viable pipe bombs. One placed steps from where Kamala Harris was sitting inside the DNC. The other left on a bench outside the RNC, unnoticed for almost 17 hours. Most people, left, right, and center, assumed the bombs were a partisan attack. Democrats thought it was MAGA trying to assassinate their selected cackling nominee. Republicans thought it was a deep state Christopher Wray false flag to frame Trump supporters, but both sides were wrong. And that's exactly why Cole, or whomever directed him, chose both buildings. Because, so you see, planting at one headquarters screams political motive, but planting at both screams anarchist chaos agent or lone nut who hates the entire system. It muddies the waters. It buys time. It keeps the country arguing about which side did it while the real perpetrator walks free for half a decade. Think of it as terrorist level optics management. If you only hit the DNC, well, instant white supremacist Trump supporter, right? If you only hit the RNC, then you have an instant Antifa false flag op. But if you hit both on the same night, the story becomes a crazy person who hates both parties. The media gets confused, the narrative fractures, and the trail goes cold. And it worked perfectly. Well, that is until now. But for 4 years, the case sat unsolved while the FBI chased January 6 grandmas and the media chased its favorite ghost, the white MAGA bomber who never existed. Intentional, yes. The bombs were built to kill. Real explosives, real timers, real shrapnel, but the placement was built to confuse. And Cole didn't need both to actually detonate. He needed both to be discovered so the country would waste years screaming past each other instead of looking for him. Tapper's reflexive white man line proves the trick still works even now. But the second the arrest broke, the old standard script auto-played live on CNN until the mugshot hit the screen and the narrative collapsed in real time. But why? Well, I'm glad you asked. And so you see, on the night of January 5th, 2021, a hooded figure walked through Capitol Hill carrying a backpack. At 7:54 p.m., he placed a homemade bomb outside the DNC. 22 minutes later, another one outside the RNC. Now, these weren't fake devices. The FBI has confirmed they are viable bombs constructed from galvanized pipes, kitchen timers, and homemade black powder. And here's the detail that should make your blood boil. These bombs sat there for 15 hours before anyone found them. It's actually one of the reasons why so many believe this was an inside job. Despite Secret Service and federal agents supposedly scouring through these neighborhoods and city streets to pre-screen security the day before the J6 protest, drawing hundreds of thousands, somehow they completely overlooked both devices. The Secret Service never found them. They only discovered the bombs as Capitol chaos was already unfolding the next day, diverting critical law enforcement resources away from the Capitol building. Again, another rather odd detail in all of this. The Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino directly calls out the Biden regime for their cover-up of the J6 pipe bomber, and he says their goal was to completely destroy the American people's trust in institutions. But the Trump administration identified him in just months. I don't know what the hell they're doing, he says.
Sean, I don't know what the hell this prior leadership team was doing outside of, targeting political opponents, weaponizing the FBI, destroying its reputation, embarrassing agents that are doing really good work out there, catching terrorists, CCP spies, and everyone else. It's almost like they were intentionally trying to decimate faith in institutions. It's horrifying. I don't know what they were doing. I can tell you what happened, though, when we got there. The director and I. My first meeting, I swore in, and I kid you not, probably 15 minutes later, and the people who are in the meeting know, I said, when I get in there, I want a full brief on this pipe bomber case on day one. And I looked at the case agent after getting a full brief on what they'd done, and they had done a pretty extensive amount of work. They had chased down, I think, thousands of leads, 6,000 plus interviews had been conducted, hundreds of tips. And it still was relatively stale, the case. And I grabbed the case agent on the way out. And I said, you're going to get me this guy. You're going to track this guy down and you're going to find him. You're going to get me this guy. I want him. And that started what's been almost a 9-month operation right now to make sure that we could get full accountability and transparency to the American public and find this guy. And today we did. But Sean, I have to add this because this is really important. You've heard all the cliches, team effort. You hear it all the time in sports. I said it today at the presser, but I want to emphasize this. This was a team. Judge Jeanine, Deputy Attorney General Blanche, people you and I know very well, AG Bondi. You cannot do anything in the FBI without DOJ process, subpoenas, drawn paper, search warrants, complaints, arrest warrants. Who do you think does that? It's not just us. We're the investigators. They're the lawyers. So that team from day one, I told Pam and Todd, I said, hey, Cash and Cash could not have been more supportive. He's like, Dan, go for it. They said, whatever you need. And their attorneys over there were amazing on this case. So don't just throw the team effort thing out like it's just a standard cliche. I mean it. They really did a great job.
New York.
Now, as Pam Bondi made clear, for years the FBI had surveillance footage. They had cell phone tower data. They conducted over 1,000 interviews. They even were able to identify the perpetrator's shoe print in the snow and determine it was made by Nike Air Max Speed Turfs. And they were able then to subpoena credit card records from Foot Locker and other chains as they worked to narrow down potential buyers, even narrowing down the size of the shoe. And for 4 years under Biden, nothing with all those leads, with all that data, nothing. And so then Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they take over the FBI, and within months, Bongino announced that they were taking a fresh look at the case, and they brought in new personnel. They flew in detectives as task force officers. They conducted internal evaluations. They reran every lead. And what did they find? It turns out the evidence was sitting there right in front of them the entire time. Law enforcement sources are now admitting this suspect could have been arrested years ago if investigators had simply connected the dots. If they just had done their job. Think about the entire 4-year time Biden was in office, Kamala was in office. You had Mayorkas at the border. How many times did people just not do their jobs? Christopher Wray. Now, I want you to think about that. They didn't connect the dots because, one, they didn't want to, and or B, they were too busy looking for a white male, I suppose, instead of this black DC pipe bomber. Yes, folks, a black man whose dad worked with Ben Crump. But the left, liberals, and the media is still trying to lie.
Hey, everybody. And guess what? The J6 pipe bomber, it gets even better. Not only does he look like this, guess what else? His dad, Brian Cover Sr., is a race hustler. That's right. He's a race hustler. Him and Benjamin Crump, they actually tried to sue, saying his dad couldn't sell his bail bonds business because he black. Oh, Lord, they call him black. Oh, what we gonna do? I'm black, what I'm gonna do? His son is a member of Antifa. His son is a member of Antifa. Everything we have been saying, because I was at January 6th. See? Look at this right here, y'all. Look at this. Looks like we got a double map now. Look at this, y'all. Look at this. Look at the crowd. Yeah, that's the crowd over my shoulder, yeah. Yes, yes. Now, as you clearly saw, we were saying back then that there were Antifa and Black Lives Matter people in the crowd who were antagonists, who was telling people to bust windows, who was doing this. Joe Biden administration knew he was black because, like the Pam Body said yesterday, they didn't do anything new. They just dusted off what they knew. And you know they would catch him because of his sneakers, right? Boy, you can't get anything more blacker than that. I want to hear this. I want to hear the people. Well, they just trying to pick on him because he's black. Woo! Look at you. You up there toe tapping for the white man. Y'all know them bombs weren't going to work. Y'all know black folk can't make bombs. What, y'all saw Hoodlum? And you saw my man from Boyz II Men? And you thought, because what he did in the movie Hoodlum, the Dope Schultz warehouse, you really thought that was real? Boy, y'all talking about funny and having a good time. It's good to be MAGA today. And yes,
he was a domestic terrorist walking free for almost half a decade. Not because catching him was impossible, but because the previous FBI leadership, frankly, didn't appear to want to catch him. It was terrorist level optics management, and it worked perfectly. Well, that is until now. And for once, Pam Bondi, this is good police work. But for 4 years, the case sat unsolved while the FBI chased January 6 grandmas and the media chased its favorite ghost, the white MAGA bomber who never existed. Intentional, yes. And the bombs were built to kill. Real explosives, real timers, real shrapnel, but the placement was built to confuse. And Cole didn't need both to actually detonate. He needed both to be discovered so the country would waste years screaming past each other instead of looking for him. And Tapper's reflexive white man line proves the trick still works even now. But again, the second the arrest broke, the old standard script auto-played live on CNN until that mugshot hit the screen and the narrative collapsed in real time leads us back to a simple question. But again, why? Well, I'm glad you asked.
I think things are so different today because okay, let's go back to, you've talked about this before, and I'll just kind of ask you, I think it's good for the audience if you want to go through it. 1960, 64% of African Americans would vote Democrat.
Yes, sir.
The rest was conservative.
Yes, sir.
Let's put liberal and conservative. That's a better way of saying it, right?
Okay.
64 liberal, 36 conservative. 1964, 4 years later, 92% blacks are voting Democrat.
Yeah. Lyndon B. Johnson's civil rights legislation.
So what happened there? Maybe give a little bit of the history of Goldwater, Lyndon Johnson, what he did.
JFK's assassinated. Lyndon B. Johnson's in office. Republicans and Democrats, back in the day, Dixiecrats, bipartisanly bring a bill to the desk of Lyndon B. Johnson. He signed civil rights legislation into law. According to whatever reports you believe, Lyndon B. Johnson says, we bring this legislation, we sign this legislation into law, we'll have the Negroes voting for us for the next 50 years.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, members of the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. Today is a triumph for freedom as huge as any victory that's ever been won on any battlefield. Yet to seize the meaning of this day, we must recall darker times. 3.5 centuries ago, the first Negroes arrived at Jamestown. They did not arrive in brave ships in search of a home for freedom. They did not mingle fear and joy in expectation that in this new world anything would be possible to a man strong enough to reach for it. They came in darkness and they came in chains. And today, we strike away the last major shackle of those fierce and ancient bonds.
Sure enough, that's what it was. And I think me personally, as I've edified myself over the years to see what's been transpiring in our community, on one hand, when I look at legislation and I think about affirmative action and other things, and I see how I've benefited because opportunities were given to me at a particular moment in time in the 80s, for example, when, that some would say may not have been given to me if I were not an African American or you didn't have affirmative action in a place and what have you. When you hear those things, you're trying to lean left because you're saying they're thinking about us, And like you said, those messengers from the Democratic Party are very profound. You've got Jimmy Carter in office, but the economy was so bad, so Reagan had to get him out of there. But you got Reagan in office from 80 to 88. You're looking at what transpired in his administration, good or bad, depending on how you think about it. But if you're not educated, what are you thinking? Did he care about black people? You're actually asking those questions if you're coming from the black community and you're not reading all the time. You're not educating yourself because you're literally trying to survive. And when that happens, ultimately it becomes habit. Your mama voted Democrat, your dad voted Democrat, your big sister, big brother voted Democrat. How could you think about voting any other way? And all of a sudden, those habits kick in, and then you get older and older, and you start seeing how it profoundly affects your life as an individual, and you're like, wait a minute.
All right, y'all, let's hit pause for a second because this matters and it's really important. We talk a lot on this channel about taking control of your life, making smart choices, and not letting the system overwhelm you. But when it comes to navigating Medicare, it can feel like you're wading through a swamp of total confusion. Plans, coverage, costs, deadlines, you name it. And that's where Chapter steps in. They're not just another company. They're the real deal when it comes to free Medicare help. Chapter's team of advisors has helped thousands of people across the country find the right Medicare plan, and they do it with one goal in mind: putting you first. No fees, no pressure, just honest guidance to make sure you're covered without breaking the bank. Big insurance companies have their own agendas, but Chapter's got your back, fighting to get you the plan that works for you. So if you're approaching Medicare age or helping a loved one figure it out, don't go it alone. Call Chapter today at 270-467-2426 and start getting the clarity you deserve. Because at the end of the day, protecting your health and your wallet, well, that's not just smart. It's living life on your terms. My fellow Americans, today is a triumph for freedom as huge as any victory that's ever been won on any battlefield. Yet, to seize the meaning of this day, we must recall darker times. 3.5 centuries ago, the first Negroes arrived at Jamestown. They did not arrive in brave ships in search of a home for freedom. They did not mingle fear and joy and expectation that in this new world, anything would be possible to a man strong enough to reach for it. They came in darkness and they came in chains. And today we strike away the last major shackle of those fierce and ancient narratives. Ancient narratives. The Democrats' game, their scam, their black magic trick, so to speak, exposed. President Johnson wanted everyone to hear and see him as he explains the significance of the long overdue passing of the Voting Rights Act, allowing all people, regardless of color, to vote. And those were his remarks on the signing of the Voting Rights Act, August 6, 1965. But this is, at its core, the same wordplay and manipulation we just saw. Some 60 years later with Jake Tapper, now on CNN. And so you see, I'm talking about a trick that is bigger and better than anything you've ever seen. And we mustn't forget, magic isn't real, but the trick is. But remember, the closer you think you are, the less you'll actually see. He's not even joking. Jake Tapper labels the J6 pipe bomb suspect a 30-year-old white man. Does Brian Cole Jr. really look white to you? A familiar quote that we experience far too often. It's easier to fool someone than convince them they have been fooled. Mark Twain. But it's hard to convince people they have been used, duped, and aren't victims. The liberal mind brainwashing summed up so simply, so eloquently. And so you see, Lyndon Johnson gets credit for signing the Civil Rights Act. But the fact is, he killed the Civil Rights Act 3 times while he was in Congress throughout the Eisenhower administration, who pushed very hard to get it passed. And it passed with almost universal Republican support. And very few Democrats voted for the Civil Rights Act to pass then, too. There's the why, ladies and gentlemen. A pivotal moment in 1960s American history, the shift in African American voting patterns and what ties it to a timeless idea. Stoic words reminding us how hard it can be to recognize when we've been misled, used, or even just caught in a cycle of habit, especially when it comes to politics. But let's just start with the numbers, okay? In the 1960 presidential election, John F. Kennedy, the Democratic candidate, received about 68% of the African American vote, while Richard Nixon, the Republican, got around 32%. And this was already a lean towards Democrats, building on shifts that began in the 1930s with Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs, which provided economic relief during the Great Depression and started drawing black voters away from the Republican Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln. Fast forward to 1964, LBJ, who became president after JFK's assassination, signed the Civil Rights Act into law on July 2. This landmark legislation outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and it ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination. It was a game changer for civil rights, and as a result, in that year's election, Johnson won an overwhelming 94% of the black vote against Republican Barry Goldwater. So you can all see what drove this dramatic jump, right? The Civil Rights Act played a huge role, and Johnson and the Democrats knew it, which is what led a Southern Democrat from Texas to push and pass it despite opposition from many in his own party. Opposition which came largely from Southern Democrats known as Dixiecrats who filibustered the bill for 75 days before it passed. There's a famous quote people often repeat and refer to, which is of Johnson after having signed the bill, saying something along the lines of, "We'll have these voting Democrat for the next 200 years. But let's focus on the facts and what we do know. And that is that Johnson used racist language in private, yet he publicly fought for civil rights, saying in a 1965 speech on voting rights, "There is no issue of states' rights or national rights. There is only the struggle for human rights." His actions helped solidify Democratic support among black voters, while the Republican Party's Southern strategy in later years appealed more to white Southerners disillusioned by civil rights advances. Programs like affirmative action, which emerged in the late 1960s and 70s, built on this era. They aimed to address historical inequalities by opening doors in education and jobs. For many in the black community, these policies felt like real progress, opportunities that might not have existed otherwise. But as time went on, generational habits kicked in, and just like Stephen A. said, if your parents and grandparents voted a certain way because of economic relief or civil rights wins, it becomes tradition. Especially when at a time people weren't reading and didn't have the same access and community and available information, platform, and forum like we all have today. The core mission back then was survival. It was critical to just stick to focusing on day-to-day life, which often leaves little room for deep political reevaluation. And so, hearing President Johnson at the time, for many back then, was what I'm sure CNN and Jake Tapper hoped for last night when he mistakenly or purposefully said what he said about the black white man. Jake, the January 6th bomber terrorist was a young black guy, a radical anti-Trump activist. He sued Trump and ICE and DHS, extreme racial justice advocate. Oh, and works at his family bail bonds company that frees criminal aliens from ICE custody. Yeah, this explains exactly why the FBI and the DOJ could not find this guy for 4 years. The Biden FBI had mountains of evidence against Brian Cole, receipts, cell data, license plate, photos, and videos of the crime. They knew exactly who did it. But Brian's profile destroys their entire MAGA white supremacist insurrection bomber narrative in one blow. The FBI didn't fail to catch him. Leftists protected their own. This is the biggest FBI cover-up scandal in history. What an absolute nightmare. Their cause must be our cause too, because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice, and we shall overcome. End quote. Lyndon Baines Johnson. And on this day, convince women to hate men, convince men to hate themselves, convince minorities to hate whites, convince whites to hate themselves, convince the young to be LGBTQIA+, convince the old that they are backward. Only takes a generation if done correctly. Now, with that fresh on your mind, I want you to watch this, a short 50-second clip from ABC's The View, where Whoopi Goldberg defends Democratic support for LGBT and Black communities as essential to their coalition, stating that without them, what do you have? A remark that draws an immediate objection from guest Stephen A. Smith. Whoopi, screaming her nonsensical talking points, as always, says it was important for Democrats to show they stood with the LGBT community and Black women because once you let us go, once you let women and poor people go, what do you have? And just watch, wait, and see the look on Stephen A. Smith's face just as he says something so calm and so simple, yet profound but strong and impactful that it totally crushes the dreadlock monster's high horse soapbox narrative with just 5 simple and easy words.
I'm going to say one more thing because, I know that you have very strong feelings about Democrats, but I do have this to say to you. It was important, I think, for Democrats to show that they stood with the LGBT community, that they stood with Black women and women in general, because once you let us go, once you let women and poor people go, what do you have? And so I've listened to lots of people say, that you didn't follow what was necessary. They did it the way they thought they could. It didn't work for them. They got it.
See, respectfully, I don't like that. Let me explain.
That's okay.
Let me explain.
Just like you said to Sonny.
Let me explain.
He sure did say that to me.
Let me
We're going
explain.
to come back. We have to take a break.
We have to take a break?
We have to take a break.
When you come back, you can explain.
Yeah.
Okay.
More with Stephen A. Smith.
Quick show of hands. Who wants to see a magic trick? Okay. Abracadabra. And now, would you look at that? Just as Stephen A. Smith begins to elaborate on his disagreement. But, what's that? Oh, no. It's time for a commercial break. And he's cut off by the break music. But isn't that just perfect liberal media timing? I would ask why? Why does he even bother? Besides, he's probably contractually obligated by the parent companies signing his and those cackling women on The View's paychecks. Behold and witness the truth and share this to show your friends, family, and coworkers just how Democrats' reliance on demographic blocks lead woke mind virus infected TDS delusionalists like Whoopi Goldberg to say some of the dumbest things imaginable. And just because they cut off Stephen A. Smith from speaking facts and truth doesn't mean they can stop me. Their commercial break theme music has no power here on my show. But let's break down and analyze just what it is Whoopi said, actually. And she said it was important for Democrats to show that they stood with the LGBT community and Black women. Because once you let us go, once you let women and poor people go, what do you have? All right. Can we pause for just a moment, for just a minute, so we can let that sink in? In one single sentence, Whoopi just lumped Black women into the LGBT community, then lumped all of those groups into poor people. And so, according to Whoopi, a woman worth an estimated $60 million, by the way, every Black woman, every gay American, every woman in general is poor, broke, destitute, can't survive without the benevolent hand of the Democrat Party keeping them on the plantation. Is ring, ring, ring. Hello, Whoopi. Oprah Winfrey just called, and she's got 3 billion reasons why your take is total garbage. Your other woke, lesbian, tongue and groove, country fleeing, alphabet gang, charity case, Ellen DeGeneres, yeah. She wants to know if her 9-figure fortune got lost in the mail somehow or swept away in that flood. Candace Owens, Winsome Sears, Tim Scott, Clarence Thomas, Byron Donalds. All of them apparently don't exist in Whoopi's woke little fantasy world, I guess. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the same Whoopi who screams racist anytime a conservative dares point out basic facts, but has zero problem stereotyping millions of Black women as helpless, poor victims who will literally have nothing if Democrats don't stand with them. That's not empowerment, folks. That is a plantation mentality with better lighting. That's exactly what the Democrats and Lyndon B. Johnson hoped for and wanted to happen for centuries to come back some 60-ish years ago. And do you want to know the best part? The second Stephen A. Smith started cooking her alive, calmly, respectfully, like a grown-up, the producers panicked, slammed the commercial break button, and yanked the feed faster than you can say the color purple. Because God forbid the audience hears a black man explain why identity politics just lost him the election. This, ladies and gentlemen, is peak Democrat brain rot. Treat entire demographics like cattle, assume they're too poor and too stupid to ever leave the party, and when someone calls it out, just cut the mic, cut the feed, run to the commercial. Whoopi confirms the Democrat strategy relies entirely on treating demographics as client states. She views these groups as political property rather than free individuals. And Stephen A. correctly rejects this suffocating patronage. The left cannot conceive of a world where people succeed without their permission or specialized pity. And when you remove their identity politics, you restore the nation. And they fear this because a liberated populace has no use for their manufactured grievances. The coalition of the miserable is finally fracturing. But their games and tricks and fraud have all just done one thing over the years, and it has contributed to recent electoral shifts, as echoed in Smith's ESPN critiques of party strategies. And yeah, it's just horrible that they took a break before he could explain his position. This is classic, all because Whoopi didn't just say something dumb again, but because she accidentally told the truth about how the left really sees you. Not as individuals, not as Americans with dreams and bank accounts and independent minds, but as voting blocks to be pandered to, frightened, and kept in line. Whoopi's argument, presented as a factual statement, is entirely wrong and a lie that someone of only maybe sub 70 or less IQ level would even imagine to say, use to be of sound mind and logically used as a debatable foundation to stand on, which is exactly why producers cut the feed and sent them to commercial break before Stephen A. Smith torched the whole set. But wait, if Whoopi's that dumb and her IQ is so low, then does that mean she may have ties to the illegal immigrants who came over to our country from Somalia?
The next time I go out and a white person looks at me like this, I'm going to look back like this. Keep your fake smile. Keep this. Because I'm going to look at you like this.
And believe it or not, but this Muslim influencer has almost 1 million subscribers with 951,000 followers and counting. And she lives in America, but apparently she hates white people. And she singles out white people and says she's going to make faces at them in public whenever she perceives a white person's smile to not be genuine. Whew. And now look, I know my comments are going to get flooded with things like send them all back to their Arab countries, to their Arab countries. But isn't her behavior just as bad as what Whoopi Goldberg was trying to argue in favor for LGBTQ and poor black women? But holy crap. It was just revealed that the Somali Minnesota fraud might end up toward $8 billion, and not just the $1 billion we had originally thought.
Based on what we have found so far, we believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes. And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history. The total bill, the total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme, and we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, and this is a significant undercount, by the way, 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare. But that's likely a significant undercount of just how much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing on this country.
My God, Governor Tim Walz, what have you done?
Fraud investigators are finding in Minnesota is growing by the day. Kelly Loeffler, who leads the Small Business Administration, says in the 2 days her agency has been investigating the state, they've uncovered at least $1 million in PPP fraud just 2 days in. Several of the whistleblowers in Minnesota have also told lawmakers they believe the total amount of fraud could total up to more than $8 billion. Governor Tim Walz, who is up for re-election, is under fire for all of this happening under his watch. But he says they have paused these programs. They've brought in outside auditors to get an idea of how far-reaching this fraud was. They're taking steps to keep it from happening again. And he's defending his management of the state while also taking shots at Republicans and the president.
And in spite of the headwinds we're up against, Minnesota ranks economically, economic growth, happiness, number of people insured, education levels, near the very top. So I'll tell you what, I have no interest in having this state look like Oklahoma or Mississippi. And if folks are going to commit crimes here, thinking because our generous spirit and our programs that we have is going to give them some kind of cover, they are sadly mistaken.
Yeah, Minnesota is also now home to the single largest pandemic fraud scheme in the country. And Republicans argue that Walz and other Democrats opened the door to this.
Several whistleblowers say they believe the total fraud could total up to more than $8 billion. And investigators are finding more by the day. Plus, the SBA found in 2 days at least another $1 million in PPP fraud alone. That was just 2 days. 2 days in. Imagine what we'll know this time next week.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
But so now, what I want to know is, how much of that went straight into Ilhan Omar's pocket? It's even been reported that the Somali fraudster, Ilhan Omar's net worth is $30 million. Ladies and gentlemen, Ilhan Omar reported a negative net worth of minus 45 grand in the hole, in the red, when she was first elected to Congress in 2019. But her latest financial disclosure from May of 2025 shows a net worth of up to $30 million. That's a 66,676% increase in 6 years. And yes, you heard that right. Our country is being looted in broad daylight by those who hate it. And what else I want to know is, when will Tim Walz be forced to resign, quit, step down from his role as governor? I mean, he had to know this was going on, right?
All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. The man pictured is Abdul Dahir Ibrahim. He entered the country in 2000 and has had an order for removal since 2004. He also has a prior conviction in Canada for asylum and welfare fraud. ICE tells Fox News Ibrahim was granted temporary protected status for 10 years, but should have never been eligible. We are going to have more on this in our next hour.
So both Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz appear smiling in images with Abdul Dahir Ibrahim, a Somali alien here in this country illegally who's tied to Minnesota's fraud scheme, looking like bestest of friends and posing all buddy-buddy alongside high-ranking Democrats in the state of Minnesota. But this is not me veering off on a tangent, folks, or shifting focus to a new topic. No, this is all tied back to that one faithful day in 1965. The only difference now is instead of all the blacks and the Negroes, the Democrats want illegals voting for them for the next 200 years. And I'm standing on business when I say they all need to be deported ASAP.
Immigrant from Somalia that has now been charged with multiple counts of rape in Minnesota, including a minor. What can you share about this investigation? You know, they have said that this administration is just trying to demonize the Somalian community, but we got a criminal here.
Okay, Lawrence, this guy came into our country in 2015 under Barack Obama. He let him in legally, just like all the Afghanistans he's been letting in. He let him in legally in 2015. He committed a rape of a child, a horrific rape in 2017. Then he committed another rape in 2024. He's arrested in state court, lives in the Minneapolis area the entire time. Last name Muhammad, he's 28 years old. He's convicted in state court of both rapes. They let him walk out the door on probation. Double rapist. Pled to him, walked out the door. Then, under our administration, he commits a new rape. He is arrested. He is in federal custody. We are going back in time now, charging him again with kidnapping and the rape of the 2017 case. And I can tell you there are more charges to come. And again, this is good police work. They took his DNA, ran his DNA through databases for all these unsolved rapes. So let's wait and see how many charges come after that. That should frighten everyone.
Holy crap. He came in under Barack Obama, y'all. Now, yes, and we did talk about that in depth on my last show, but isn't it just kind of funny, ironic, how we live in a country where bartenders go to jail for over-serving drunks who kill someone after getting behind the wheel and driving intoxicated, impaired, DUI, you know? And so shouldn't it only be fair, an eye for an eye, that judges should face jail time when the criminals they release do the same? Another Somali migrant charged multiple times with child rape and kidnapping. Minnesota convicted him and let him walk out the door. Last name, Mohammed, double rapist, and he just committed another rape. He's now in federal custody with more charges to come. Attorney General Pam Bondi, listen to me. They all have to go back. Listen to us. Send them back. We mean it. And I know. There are some folks out there who wouldn't agree. But believe me, it is for the best. Really. Call me what you want. A traitor even. But to that I say, grow a backbone. Just like our unafraid border czar, Tom Homan, calls out a heckler and tells him to put a Kevlar vest and a gun on your hip and go secure this border. This happened during his speech at a Turning Point USA event on the University of Texas at El Paso's campus.
Call me what you want. I don't care. You know? Then, sir, look, I want to take questions. I'll take questions in a little bit, but why don't you grow a backbone, put a Kevlar vest and a gun on your hip and go secure this border?
And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone directly associated with restoring the border and deporting criminal aliens under the Trump administration, which include, of course, Donald J. Trump, Ann Christie Nome, Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, Rodney Scott, Matthew Albence, Kevin McAleen, Kirsten Nielsen, and look, sorry if I'm leaving anyone out, but my sincerest gratitude. Seriously. And I know you all don't feel like the ass clown in the crowd there yelling at Tom Homan because you've all told me. And my channel subscribers keep growing. And these comments here, like, I love this show. First time viewer. You got a new subscriber, man. Love your dialect. Great job. And nice work. This is a powerful compilation that might help some see the picture. Or maybe, and I have another quote here from the movie, but maybe it's how you love the way I sum things up so eloquently. Plus, I read your emails too. Like this one I got today from Mike. And it says, Kevin, I just sat through your video on Obama and I left a couple of long-winded comments, but I'd really like the things I found to be amplified since I have no social fame to spread information and the media has tried like hell to bury. Hit me back if you're interested. I'm on YouTube as a commenter. I have no content and no interest in creating content since I'm terribly camera shy, but I do have a lot of information from history, both traditional and modern, that the left keeps burying and ignoring entirely that needs to get out. I thank you for your time and hope you have a wonderful day. But a little snippet of historical stuff maybe to pique your interest. A Democrat in the Oval Office saying, give them a little now and we'll have them niggers voting Democrat for 200 years. Right after signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 might be interesting to you when left-wing Snopes can't even refute it. Although they are intent on the use of subversive language to make it seem as they are saying that it isn't true. The classic Democrats' forked silver tongue. Have a blessed day, sir. And thank you, Mike. And you're right. As we discussed in detail earlier in this video, the Democrats aren't really interested in improving anyone's lives, whether it be blacks, once slaves, or immigrants, illegal, undocumented, or not. It's all about rigging the game and the system so that they can steal a win and steal our country and steal our money or just make our lives worse.
James O'Keefe here in downtown Minneapolis at the scene of the crime. The person you're about to meet, Liban Mohammed, aka King Liban 1, boasts about the hundreds of absentee ballots in his car.
Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Wajida gaarigayga waa buuxaa. Waxaas waa absent ballot salka yaala. Soo ma jeedin. Fiiri, waxaas oo dhan soo ma jeedin. Waa buuxaa gaarigayga. Waa buuxaa yaala. Waxaas kulli waa Jamaal Cusmaan way. Fiiri. 300 clear maanta soo dhacday oo Jamaal Cusmaan. Yeah.
There was video. You could see the video. There was a video out and about that he has the ballots in his car.
Right.
And talking about the only way you can win is with money. I was looking at them and they were not filled. They were blank.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots?
People who work with, like Ilhan Omar.
Where do they pay the money?
The minute we sign the thing, the election, that's what you get paid.
Money is everything. Money is the key in this world. If you ain't got money, you should not be here, period.
At the end of this street,
yes,
there's 3 towers called phone towers.
Okay.
And it's all seniors, and they took every ballot.
Every ballot. They just take them from them.
Every single ballot. They knock on the door and say, your ballots, come, give it to me, give it to me.
They don't even pay them for it. They just take it.
No. And the ones that didn't vote on ballots, the young people and the women and stuff, they were paying cash. They were getting bags of money the last 1 week here to drive people. So there's a vested interest, but we are victims of the system. They don't give a shit about any Somali.
2 in the morning, still hustling.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots?
People who work with, like Ilhan Omar and other candidates who work for them. They came to us to our apartments. They tell us that this year you're going to vote for Ilhan. You don't go nowhere, you stay home, we will tell you fill out for your absentee ballot. When it comes, we'll come and get it. You just don't go nowhere, you stay here. They fill out for us.
But think about it, folks. Elon Musk and Mila Joy say the quiet part out loud. You must show your ID to fly. You have to show your ID to drink. Cops demand you show your ID to drive. And if you want to get married, must show ID. Want to buy some weed? Yep. Got to show ID to buy weed. If you gamble, you must show your ID. Hell, don't you dare catch a cold and then go out to Walmart and try and buy some cough medicine. Yep. I show my ID to buy Benadryl. And I know people are complaining about jobs right now, but guess what? You got to show your ID to work. So why in the hell wouldn't you need, or I need, an ID to vote? Well, because all the other examples and experiences are more so about control. And when it comes to voting, that is about theft, fraud, and stealing elections. And any challenge to this great threat to democracy, or more so our republic, is then labeled and deemed racist by evil demon rats in the mainstream media. We have to push back and challenge this evil force. We have no other choice, people.
I know up front the Republicans, or Republicans, as I call them because of the Epstein thing, they're straight racist. I already know that. Because it's a double standard. Where's the same energy?
Time out. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Republicans are racist as opposed to specific names. You're just going to call an abundance of people racist.
A blanket across the board. The Republicans are straight racist.
Goodbye, man. Have a nice day. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm not letting anybody on either side of the aisle castigate an entire party of people like that. I'm not doing that. That gets us nowhere. Malik, you can call back any other show. But if you have points, make your point. What if you ran across somebody who voted Republican and all they cared about was the economy? What if you ran across a Republican that didn't know a damn thing about any of those other issues you brought up, but all they cared about was safety in the streets? What if you ran across a Republican and all they cared about was being pro-life and didn't know 2 cents about the economy, affordability, immigration, safety in the streets, our education system, tariffs, whatever? You can't do that, bro. You can't do that. You know why I hung up, Malik? You know why I felt compelled to shut you down? Because what if white folks turned around and said, all black dudes are criminals? All of us? If you don't want to be castigated and stigmatized and labeled, the first order of business to insulate yourself from stuff like that is to make sure you don't do it to other people. Don't do it. There is ample ammunition to go after Republicans about every day, all day. I don't like the way they handled the shutdown. I don't like the fact that they were willing to cost 42 million people on SNAPs access to food stamps that would ultimately enable them to feed themselves. I don't like the fact that the Democrats used it and weaponized it and was going after subsidies for the Affordable Care Act to get their point across, knowing they didn't have a snowball's chance in hell in getting that through the continual resolution. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Not from either side. There's always complaints. But when you castigate people like that, you eradicate the potential for an intelligent discussion about the issues, bro. You better than that, Malik. You smarter than that. Be better. Be smarter. When you call back up, have salient points to make, which we both know you're capable of, instead of going to some weak-ass position that they can plausibly deny any day of the week. What Republican do you think is going to listen to you if you say they're racist? So every Republican's racist. So you know what that means? That if you got a job, which we know you do, and you work for a Republican, which you probably do and don't even know, you think they're racist too. Where that going to get you? Come on, bro. You better than that.
Aren't you all better than that? And I didn't expect to feature Stephen A. Smith so many times in today's show, but in each conversation that we all end up having, he seems to be more and more present and vocal. From a call it down the middle, balls and strikes perspective approach. And I'm greatly appreciative to see someone out there with such reach and a strong voice doing the Lord's work and having the tough talks to try and bring back and restore some sense of order and decency to our political landscape. Perspective. Because even if you don't agree with him politically, he deserves respect for his common sense, and I genuinely appreciate him shutting down this particular rhetoric. I'm so tired of being told what a horrible person I am by those on the left simply for wanting America to be great again. Unselfishly for me, for you, and for them. We simply see things differently. We are not racist or fascist or Nazis, nor any of the other horrendous things they claim we are. And Stephen A. Smith has common sense, and more Democrats should be listening to him. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stop the devil, you don't just cut off her hands, you lift her wallet. And her wallet, in this metaphor, is taxpayer money, fraud and abuse, and rampant theft. The likes of millions and even billions of dollars escaping states like Minnesota and heading directly towards East Africa, and more so specifically to fund terrorist organizations in Somalia. Take away their money, and you take away their power. You all remember how they behaved after Doge shut down the NGOs and USAID? Yeah, those hundreds of millions of dollars being sent overseas for trans underwater basket weaving studies for muskrats in Mogadishu or something, all fronts, pieces of their puzzle that, when all put together, point out the criminals behind it all, the enemies from within. Believe Trump when he says it. Look closely, because the closer you think you are, the less you'll actually see. And how about this one? Seeing is believing. But is it truth or just an illusion? More quotes from the movie, but there's truth in these words.
This arrest happened because the Trump administration made it a priority.
This cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Pirro and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years. Let me be clear, there was no new tip, there was no new witness, just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, working as a team along with ATF, Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, and of course, the FBI.
And makes America first a priority, while the Democrats continue to try and play games and fool people with magic tricks. But they forget one of the most important rules. Don't look surprised when the trick works.
Yo, Tim Walz, Captain Cornbread combat veteran. Why you out there crying because people driving by your house saying the R word, bro? Ain't you the same dude that got on camera with your Walmart brand tough guy face talking about how you was gonna beat people up? So what happened? Where's that same energy at now? Your voice changed real quick, didn't it? Whole chest collapsed like a folding chair at a family reunion. Let's keep it all the way factual since y'all like fact checking everything but yourselves. Y'all the same ones that throw out labels that actually put targets on people's backs. Domestic extremists, threats to democracy, white supremacists, dangerous radicals. Y'all toss that shit around like Skittles at a pride parade. And those words get people fired, swatted, assaulted, and straight up killed. We seen that shit earlier this year. And now you upset because somebody yelled retard out a fucking car window? Be serious. The same party that spent 4 years calling half the country Nazis suddenly needs a safe space? Because Timmy got his little boo-boo feelings bruised? You were Mr. Macho Man tough talk when you thought half the internet was your sparring partner. But now a drive-by shout got your asshole tight. Nah, keep that same energy. I don't want to hear shit about words being dangerous from the side that weaponizes language like a fucking slot machine in Vegas. You dish it, you own it. You set the rules. Now you're mad that the rules spun back and smacked your ass in the lips? Yeah, and by the way, calling out hypocrisy ain't an opinion. It's a documented pattern with a 100% accuracy rate. When we say something, domestic terrorism, investigation. When you say something, passionate political rhetoric. When y'all get insulted, threat to democracy. When we get doxxed, fired, attacked, or labeled, oops, thoughts and prayers. Tim, my guy, if you want to play the tough, I'll beat people up character, cool. But don't go full fucking toddler. Just because someone didn't use the government-approved vocabulary outside your fucking driveway. That's not intimidation. That's karma doing donuts on your fucking lawn. Cry louder, Timmy, because the only thing more fragile than your fucking ego right now is the bullshit double standard that you built it on. Yo, find me the world's smallest violin.
Justice, ladies and gentlemen. And more than just Walls is a retard drive-bys. CNN, Jake Tapper, J6 bomber, and his colorblindness and or need for corrective lenses and an eye exam, or maybe to have his whole head examined. ABC, The View, Stephen A. Smith, and Whoopi Goldberg getting shut down live on air in real time. The bullshit and no more black magic. Minnesota, Tim Walz actually being photographed with the Somalians responsible for 80% of the state's fraud. Talk about a retard. We didn't need President Trump or drive-bys to prove it. Now, folks, remember that movie I told you we watched and I took the family to see last week? Now You See Me, Now You Don't. The big 2025 sequel everyone's been talking about. Well, cover your ears now because I'm about to drop some spoilers, because in the film, the four horsemen pull off the greatest illusion in history. They make an entire corrupt financial empire disappear in one night. Billions of dollars, poof, gone, then redistributed to the people who were robbed for decades. The audience is screaming, the bad guys are handcuffed on stage, and the magicians ride off into the sunset while the credits roll with the smug little wink and quote on the screen saying, "The closer you think you are, the less you'll actually see." And here's the wild part. That's exactly what just happened in real life. Only this time, the magicians aren't the good guys. The 4 straight years, the Democrats and their media accomplices ran the longest, most expensive magic trick in American history. Make the J6 pipe bomber a white MAGA extremist, even when the camera showed something else. Make $8 billion in Minnesota taxpayer money disappear into thin air, while Tim Walz smiles for the photo op. Make border security vanish with the wave of an NGO checkbook. Make an entire demographic believe the plantation is actually a 5-star resort. They had the smoke, the mirrors, the flashing lights, the CNN chyrons, pure sleight of hand. But just like in the movie, the trick only works until someone shines a bright enough light onto the stage. Trump walked back in. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino grabbed the curtain. Pam Bondi hit the switch, and suddenly, abracadabra, open sesame, and the illusion collapses in real time. The white supremacist bomber turns out to be a far-left racial justice activist. The most secure election ever starts bleeding fraud cases like a gutted fish. The party of joy is caught on camera admitting they need poor people, women, and minorities scared and dependent, or they have nothing else. And they just lose more loss. The Democrats are done. Their party has crumbled. They have no leader. They have no message. They have no policy. They have no foundation. They have nothing. The audience, folks, that's you. That's us. We're not cheering for the magicians. We're the ones in the front row yelling, "We see the wires. We see the trap door. The trick is over."
Actors, ho! Helen Hunt! Samuel Jackson! Matt Damon!
In the movie, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the horsemen end the show by exposing the con men and giving the money back to the people. In 2025 America, we just did the exact same thing, except this time it's real. The money's coming home, the criminals are going to jail, and the house lights are staying on for good. No more disappearing acts, no more now you see it, now you don't. Give everything to immigrants trick. From this point forward, now you see it, and we're never letting it disappear again. Well, at least not on my show.